What is going on YouTube? Today I want to talk to you about how to build this raised flower box. My name's Andy, this is Cedar River Woodworking, and welcome to the shop. So here is the planter that we are going to build. Now this is going to be a slightly longer video than we normally make because I kind of wanted to go into the thought processes of why I got the measurements that I did. So I'm going to put this down here on the ground and show you some of these measurements. Now I will do the full build later on in this video after I show you the measurements here. So if you want to skip forward to that, that's perfectly okay. But if you're more of a plans person, I will also have plans available on my Etsy website for this as well. So what we're going to do is we have the plastic insert here. And this plastic insert measures roughly 34.5 inches wide by 6 3/4 deep. I know that I want to have cleats underneath the edge of this, so that is going to be one thickness of a fence picket. These fence pickets are going to be 5/8 of an inch thick. So I'm going to cut 4 fence pickets, 2 of them about 34 inches long to cover the long side, and about 6.5 inches long to cover this short side here. So that's going to be one set of measurements. Then I need to have the walls on the outside of that. So I know that the ends of these I'm going to have a little bit longer because they're going to overlap the longest sides. So with that in mind, I need to add the thicknesses of these 2 pieces here. 2 of these stacked on top of each other is going to be about 1.25 inches of thickness. Now, because I want that to overlap the outside walls, I have to include the cleats and the outside walls. So there's going to be 1.25 inches on each side. So it's going to be 2.5 inches that I'm going to have to add to the total length of here. So since we are at 6 3/4 of an inch, I need to add 2 inches. So that's 8 3/4, and then I need to add another 1/2 inch to that. So we're going to be at a total length of 9 1/4 for the side walls. Now, because we are going to have one thickness on each end, and these outside boards are going to butt up to the face of this one, I don't need to add an extra thickness for the outside wall here. So for our long walls, we are going to measure this out. Again, this is about 34.5 inches long. Now we are going to have our cleats underneath the edges here. So that's going to add about 1.25 inches of thickness. So we need to have a 36-inch long wall here. Our fence pickets are going to be 6 foot long, and we're going to cut a kerf of about 1/8 of an inch with our saw blade. So we're just going to roughly cut them in half and leave it at that. And finally, our final dimension is going to be about 19 inches tall. So the reason why I got 19 inches is because the person that I'm building this for, Grandma, yes, this is the build for you. The requirements that they need is they need this to be about 19 inches tall so that they can see it when they're sitting on their deck, so it's not underneath of that, and they just want the flowers exposed on top. That height is about 19 inches. You can absolutely customize that height yourself. You can cut these legs shorter. You can use less than 2 panels on the side here. Because the depth of this flower tray is about the depth of one of these boards here. You can add a shelf underneath it. There's all kinds of customizations that you can do to this project. The great thing about customizations is that those help sell your products. So if this is something that you're going to try and sell, I'm going to have a cost breakdown at the end of this video so that you have a realistic idea of what you want to sell this product for. So now that we have all of our measurements laid out, let's jump over to our miter saw and I will show you all of the cuts that we're going to make for this build. So here we are over at our miter saw. I have 5 fence pickets here for this entire build. I'm going to take 2 of them and set them off to the side. We need to process those a little bit before we start cutting them up. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to cut 9 1/4 inches off of the end of this fence picket here. We're going to need 4 of these cuts. I did pre-sand these just to get some of the fuzz that normally comes on these fence pickets off of here and just have it a little bit more presentable. So I like to cut the ends off of these just to make sure that everything is square. And then we're going to measure our 9 1/4 inches. So remember, these are going to be our short walls. So we are going to need 4 of these because we are going to have 2 on each side. So that's going to give us that thicker look to it. So since we're going to be cutting 4 of them, I want them to be identical measurements. So I'm going to set up a stop block. With the stop block set up, make sure that you are going to hold the side that is trapped between the stop block and the saw blade, because if you lift that saw blade up, your teeth can catch the edge of that board and cause a kickback, which can potentially damage your saw or damage you. So be safe in your shops. So let's make 4 of these cuts. Next cuts, we are going to cut the remaining 2 fence pickets in half. So these are 72 inches long because they are 6-foot fence pickets. Mine is actually just shy of that. So that just shows you how much these fence pickets can vary during manufacturing. They can vary in width and thickness and length. So that's why a lot of this build is going to be referential measurements. I will have measurements for you and in the plans, but keep in mind that you may need to alter them slightly during your build. So we're going to cut this in half, which is about 36 inches. I'm going to favor a little bit shy of 36 inches since my boards are not quite 6 feet long. So we are going to measure here about the halfway point. And I do have these lined up on their ends out here, and I'm just going to double check that. And then we are going to cut them in half. Now what I mean by half is about 36 inches. So we should be able to line these up, and they are the same length across each one. There we go. So let's go over to our table saw so we can process those other 2 that we set off to the side. So over here at the table saw, we have our 2 fence pickets, and we are going to rip these down to 2 inches. So I'm going to set my fence to 2 inches. And what these are going to do is make up our leg structures. So I'm going to rip both of these down to 2 inches. You're going to have a small piece left over, and we want to keep that for our trim work later on in this build. So I do have my blade set just higher than here. I don't like to have the gullets of my teeth above it. For me, it just helps evacuate the sawdust a little bit better. Stumpy Nubs does have a great video on setting the height of your table saw blade. I'll have that linked so you can check it out and you can make your own conclusions on what you would like to build. Make sure that you're using some type of push block or push stick when you're doing these cuts. So let's go ahead and get these cut. Now that we have these cut out, I'm going to set these thinner pieces. They should be about 1.25 inches in width. I'm going to set them off to the side, and we're going to take these 2-inch wide pieces back over to the miter saw. So over here at the miter saw, we have our 2-inch pieces. We have 4 boards that are 2 inches wide by 6 foot long. We are going to cut these up into 18 3/4 inch pieces. The reason why we're going to have 18 3/8 of an inch long boards for these is because we're going to have a 5/8 inch thick trim piece around the top of it. So add that to 18 3/8 and we will have a total of 19 inches tall. So I already have a stop block set up and we're going to cut these up. So I have them stacked on top of each other. So each time that I cut this, it's going to make 1 leg. So we're going to make a total of 4 cuts. You're going to need 8 total pieces at 18 3/8 of an inch long. So now that we have those 8 pieces cut out, we do need to make our cleat pieces that are going to go underneath of the plastic tray. So I'm going to cut these pieces here at 8 inches, and then I'm going to cut these longer pieces to about 34 inches. They don't need to span the entire width of the sideboards because they don't need to support all of that much. So we are going to cut these down to those dimensions. Before I make these cuts, I want to thank everybody that has gotten this far in the video. It really means a lot to me that you're watching these videos and you're supporting the channel. If this is something that you like, please consider subscribing and liking this video. Also, if this is something that you want to build for somebody or have somebody build for you, please consider sharing the video as well, because that's going to help grow this channel even more, because it's going to get more eyes on the channel and on these videos. Let's get these cut. That should be all of our pieces that we need to cut up to this point. So now all we have to do is assemble this planter. So here we are over at the bench, and I want to apologize for any poor audio quality that has come up to this point. I didn't realize, but my mic had died. I got it all charged up. Here we are, and let's go ahead and continue this build. The things that we are going to need for this build are all the parts that we've cut. We haven't cut the trim pieces yet, so we're going to have to do a little bit of measurement for that and cut those up. Not that big of a deal, but we can get the body of this completely assembled. What we're going to be using is an 18 gauge brad nailer with 1-inch brad nails. And then we're going to use Titebond 3 wood glue. This is waterproof glue, so it is going to be okay to have outdoors. It's going to give us all of the strength that we need for these planters. So to start this build, we are going to take 2 of our short pieces and line them up side by side here, and 2 of our leg pieces, and take some Titebond 3 wood glue and put it along the edge here. You want to make sure that the edges of these are lined up correctly, and then we're going to put one of the leg pieces with the edge lined up on that. Then we're going to put some brad nails inside of that. I put about 2 brad nails per board just to hold everything together while the glue sets up. During this assembly, I do want to tell all of the members that I appreciate you supporting up to this point. We do have a giveaway. That giveaway is actually going to be a dining room table. There's going to be more details on that in the future, but if you want to know more details on that, you can be a member. And if you're not a member or being a member is not for you, please consider subscribing to the channel. So now that we have this piece assembled this way, we need to put the other half of this foot on here, and all that we are going to do is attach it to the face of this other one and lining the edges up, and it's going to create an L-look around the corner of this. I'm going to put some wood glue on here, and then we're going to brad nail it together just like the rest of it. Then we'll go ahead and put the glue on the other side and brad nail it as well. You're going to need 2 of these assemblies. So on the second assembly, I am just going to build that one off camera because it's going to be a redundant process. So we will get this here, brad nail it together. So you want to make sure that your tops are lined up with each other, and that will make sure that the bottoms are lined up. I'm going to make this other leg side assembly like this, and I will be right back. Well, now that we have our 2 short assemblies made up, we're going to add the longer sidewalls to this. And how I'm going to do that is, because these have this edge here, I can put the face of one of these long pieces right on that and brad nail it right into place. So I'm actually going to stand them up on end, and apply some glue to the inside edge of here. And then I can lay my piece directly on top of that and then brad nail it into place. Always make sure to knock over the sidewalls of your pieces. Just makes for that much more of an enjoyable experience. So I have this one here, and it's going to be lined up with the very top edge of this piece here. And I'm going to put some brad nails in there. So this piece here is going to be a little difficult to get my brad nailer up inside of here. So I'm actually going to brad nail it from the face. That means that you can have a front and a back to your planter without having any issues. So this is going to be slid up against the deck. So these ones that have the exposed brad nails are going to be pushed up against the deck. They're going to be less likely to be seen. So this process is going to be a little bit different. I'm actually going to put the glue on the edges here that are going to go up against the lip. Now this will just be lined up with the top edge here. Make sure that we're square and drive a couple into it. Now what we're going to do is put our cleats inside of here. So they are going to be shorter than these other boards. And they're also going to be glued and brad nailed in place. And these are going to give some rigidity. It's going to help against racking, things like that. And it's just going to help support the plastic insert. So I'm going to apply some glue to the cleat here and then brad nail it in place. Now I got a little bit extra on this one, so I just smeared it across the other one. So now I don't have to glue the other one. So we're just going to line this up with the top edge of this board here. Now I'm just going to roughly center it, and we're going to brad nail it into place. There is a little bit of bowing to this outside board. This is going to help straighten that up. So once we have all of these cleats in place, I'm going to stand it up here and check the fitment of our plastic tray. So our plastic tray fits in here nicely. Now all we need to do is cut our trim pieces for this. So I'm going to go ahead and measure across the ends here. And I've got about 38 3/8 on here. I can cut these out, and then I can take a measurement between them, and that will give us our short lengths. Another way that you can do that is you can set a piece up on top of here, and then take your pencil and mark it, and then you don't have to measure at all. And then all you have to do is just duplicate that onto your other piece to get your lengths that you need for this. So that is what I mean by referential measurements. So I'm going to cut out these pieces and get this completely framed up. So with this framework, the outside edge of these 1¼ inch pieces, now these are the cutoffs from when we cut the 2-inch wide pieces out of our pickets. It's actually going to overlap the outside of this foot, and it's going to touch the wall as well. That's going to give us enough surface area so that when we glue this, it's not going to be unstable. That is the reason why we went cleat, wall, and then we have our feet on the outside, so that we have that gluing surface on here as well. So I'm going to put some glue on here, and then we're going to brad nail it in place just like everything else. Now with these in place, they are going to be touching the plastic insert, but it's not going to hold it in place and make it so you can't remove it. So if you ever need to remove it at any point in time, you can do that. So here we are, all lined up on our edges, and then I'm going to put some brad nails in here to hold it in place. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side here. I do know that this other side has a little bit of bowing to it, So this top edge here looks like it kind of dips up a little bit. That's going to cause a little bit of issues, but because of the thickness of these, they'll be flexible enough that you can kind of push it down in there and the glue will hold its final shape. That's one drawback from using fence pickets on these builds, is they aren't quite uniform all of the time and they can be a little bit difficult to use. But if that's something you can get over, the cedar nature of these and being outdoors is great. All right, so we have it completely lined up and we're gonna nail it in place. Now you can see that I had to put another nail at the end of this, and that's because that little wave that had in here, it caused it to lift up. Like I said, they can be a little finicky sometimes, but it's what we have to do when we're working with this material. So now here's where that referential measurement comes in. This is going to be a little over 7 3/4. So I could put it in the plans of 7 3/4, but ultimately you should measure this before you need to make this cut. So I'm going to cut just a little bit over 7 3/4 for these two pieces. I'll be right back. So we have these two pieces cut out. I did test fit them and I had to do a little bit of trimming to get everything to fit properly. But now that they are completely test fit and ready to go, we're going to glue them in place. And there we have it. That is how we build one of these raised flower beds. So I wanted to talk to you guys about how much it would cost to make one of these and how much you could potentially sell it for. So I did a previous video on some garden trellises that a lot of you thought was an unrealistic price that they would sell for. It was just what had happened in my area, but I wanted to do a breakdown of exactly what we've got going on here. So we've got 5 fence pickets at about $3.30 a piece. We have a plastic tray insert here that was just over, I think it was like $13.60 for that. And I know that the total for materials was just under $30. So I'm gonna round that up to $30. You do have wood glue and brad nails that you would need to put on this. You can choose to include that as well. But in my formula, I end up multiplying everything by 1.2 to cover overhead and other things like that. So we have about $30 in materials. It took me 38 minutes to build this. That was with recording. So we'll put that into about 30 minutes. I do have it written up here as 38 minutes. So what my pricing formula for most of my things is the cost of my materials plus my time. And then I multiply both of those by 1.2 to give me a little bit of profit to help with overhead and maybe some other shop things that I didn't quite think about when I was doing the pricing on it. This specific one is about $30 an hour. You can adjust yours up or down depending on whatever your location is, or you can adjust it depending on how much you value your time or how much you think that your time is worth. Take those, add them together. So it was about $30 plus about $17. I guess it would be $18.99 that added on top of that. So that is $48.99. And then I'm going to multiply that by 1.2. And that's going to give me $58.79. So if you think that you can sell these for about $60 in your area, you can do that. You can lower your costs by going to a treated fence picket and not using a plastic interior on this. You could use probably 6 fence pickets and then line the interior of it and save about $10 off of your total material costs. So if that has helped you out, please let me know down in the comment section below. I want to thank all of my members again for being part of the channel. It's really helping out. If you've gotten this far, maybe you've enjoyed it enough to consider being a member. If you don't want to be a member, that's perfectly okay. Please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing this video. And we'll have some more like this. If you made it this far, let me know if there's any other type of planters that you would like. Larger size, do you have anything specific that you would like in the outdoor realm as we're coming into summer that I can help build and share with the world? But this has been really fun. It's nice to get a custom build in and explain to you guys exactly what my thought processes are on building this piece. For now, my name has been Andy. This has been Cedar River Woodworking, and we'll see you in the next video.